He wants to see a peaceful, negotiated outcome if that were possible, but Vladimir Putin is plainly determined to double down on his path of violence and aggression. Absolutely brutal way he's treating the Ukrainian people. We've got to step up. We've got to increase our support, and we've got to tighten the economic vice around Putin, sanctioning more people today as we are, sanctioning the Wagner Group, looking at what we can do to stop Putin using his gold reserves, but also doing more to help the Ukrainians defend themselves. That's what we're doing. We're helping free people to defend themselves. And so the UK, having been in the lead in giving anti-tank weaponry, is now giving 6,000 more missiles in addition to a lot of other support. But there are now dozens of nations that are supporting the Ukrainians, and we're moving really from a program of supporting resistance to supporting Ukrainian defence of their own country.
Could you give a few more specifics about what success today would look like? Is it going to involve more NATO troops to Eastern European countries, tougher cybersecurity measures, equipment for nuclear, chemical, biological war, targeting Putin's gold reserves? What does that mean? What does any of that mean in practice?
Already Putin is seeing that his ambition, which was to try to intimidate NATO, is producing the opposite effect, and he's getting more NATO on his eastern frontiers rather than on his western frontiers, more NATO on our eastern frontiers, as it were, rather than less. And the UK is doubling down in Estonia. We're putting a detachment of planes in the sky above Romania. We're increasing our support for Poland, for all the Baltic states, and we will continue to do that. Yes, of course, that NATO is working together on cyber, trying to combat Russian disinformation, but what the whole of the West wants to do, what countries around the world want to do, is work together to make clear to Putin that this type of aggression will not go unpunished. What's basically changed since NATO last met more than a month ago is we can see that the Ukrainians love and believe in their country so much that they are willing to fight, and fight street by street to protect their country. We've got to rise to the challenge that presents to us. We've got to give the Ukrainians the support, the help, the protection they need.
You spoke to President Zelensky yesterday. How is he? What did he tell you? How does he seem to be to you? And what does he want you to get out of world leaders?
Volodymyr Zelensky has proved to be one of the most extraordinary war leaders of recent times, and I think that he has marshalled world opinion and mobilized his country. And what he wants from us is more diplomatic pressure around the world. He wants tighter economic sanctions on the Putin regime, and he wants some very specific military support, defensive military support for the Ukrainian armed forces, and that we're determined to provide.
Domestically, Prime Minister, yesterday's spring statement, it does precious little for pensioners, for the unemployed, low-earning part-time workers. Some 1.3 million people will be pushed into absolute poverty next year. Do you accept you're going to have to do more in the coming months?
What the spring statement does is the biggest tax cut for working people, for low-paid working people in 25 years, helping people with the cost of living during the cost of living crisis by cutting their taxes. 70% of people will benefit from a tax cut as a result of what Rishi did yesterday. We're also stepping up to help people with the cost of fuel. The 9.1 billion we're putting in to help to cut fuel bills, helping pensioners by keeping the triple lock, making sure that we keep their all the allowances that they receive, but above all, and this is the most important thing, and making sure we have a strong economy with very high employment, people in high wage, high skill jobs. That's the way forward. The UK it's been very striking the way the UK has come out of COVID, bouncing forward with very low rates of unemployment, and 600,000 more people on the payroll than there were before the pandemic began. That's absolutely fundamental for tackling the cost of living. It will continue to be, as Rishi has said, because of the global pressures on inflation, driven partly by supply chain constraints, partly quite considerably now by Putin's war in Ukraine. It will be continue to be tough, it will continue to be choppy, but we will get through it and we will look after people throughout.
Finally, Prime Minister, Russia has put in a bid to host the 2028 Euros. Don't you think the host should be Ukraine?
Look, I think that the idea of Russia holding any kind of football tournament or any kind of cultural event right now is beyond satire. I can't believe that anybody would seriously consider their suggestion. And yes, I think that the best thing possible would be for the entire Russian armed forces to retire forthwith from Ukraine and hand the tournament to them, of course.